Find more great shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the Masterclass, the Man United Tactical Podcast, or should I say, welcome to episode 1 of 10 Days of Ten Hag. We are back, Rob, after a little bit of a hiatus, a little bit of time off, and a season to forget, to be honest. And now what we'll be doing is we'll be doing a series of podcasts and shows on Erik Ten Hag, 1 episode per day. There'll be 10 episodes on different topics on what Ten Hag needs to fix for Manchester United to return to where they should be. Guys, as always, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a follow on at Haider_Rubbani, give Rob a follow on at _Rob_B, and give us a follow on at TF Masterclass as well on Twitter. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, you know the drill. Rob, welcome back. How are you feeling? You're actually a little bit under the weather, aren't you? And we've got a lot to get through. And there's a lot of work for Ten Hag to do, isn't there, in this coming season and beyond?
Yes, I apologise in advance for croaky voices and coughing. I do indeed have the COVID. So I'm just getting over that and trying to work through it. But yeah, new season, and pre-season is only now 4 weeks away. It all comes very quick, doesn't it? It starts early, you're licking your wounds after a really bad campaign, and suddenly new managers, new players, and it all starts again, doesn't it? So fast. So yeah, we're going to go through these early parts of Ten Hag's tenure before we've even seen anything, of looking at what he does as a manager. And doing 10 Days of Ten Hag is looking at the 10 things that he's going to have to address literally on day one. So day one has come and gone, but when he introduces himself to the squad at Carrington, which is now only 2 or 3 weeks away, he will have to have some of this stuff either in place or at least prepared to get the most out of this United squad.
A lot of comments, obviously, saying welcome back. And guys, lovely to see you all. Make sure you get all your comments coming in. We will try and answer as many questions as possible. And we love your engagement as always. So thank you very much to all the listeners. But Rob, before we go and look at Ten Hag and his systems that he's played at Ajax, some of the strengths, and then we'll talk about the striking position. We are going to be talking Ten Hag and Ronaldo today. What I want to ask you is, United obviously didn't go and sign Darwin Nunez, who is signed for Liverpool. So it does look like Cristiano Ronaldo is staying for another year. Before we delve into it, and I think a lot of listeners will know your sort of views on Ronaldo, but how are you feeling about Darwin Nunez obviously going to Liverpool and not coming to Manchester United? Because you were an advocate of his. I had a few doubts. We did a few shows on him. If anyone does want to look at learn a bit more about Nunez, probably not now he's at Liverpool, do check out the podcast I did with Aaron Barton. But how are you feeling about that? Because City now have got Haaland and Alvarez. Alvarez is the one I think we should have got, to be honest, at 18 million. Now we're seeing Nunez at number 9. Man United are probably going to go into the season with Ronaldo. Marcus Rashford will probably play at number 9 as well. And we might see Martial get a few games in what seems to be last chance saloon for the 5th time.
I feel fine about Darwin Nunez because, as I've said yesterday and previously, it's not a fair fight between Liverpool and Manchester United at the moment if they're both going for the same player. Just simply isn't. The deal that Liverpool put on the table for Nunez was superior to Manchester United's offer. United were seriously interested in the player going back weeks and weeks, and obviously we spoke about that and covered that. But I also do not believe, Haider, in green-eyed envy towards football clubs or players. So he's gone to Liverpool. Good luck to him. They're losing Mane. Can he replace what Sadio Mane has done for Liverpool over the last 5, 6, 7 years? My answer to that is I'm not so sure. I think he's a really good player. I think he would have fitted what Manchester United wanted to do. And you can play him on the left. You can play him through the centre. There's a lot of upsides to Darwin Nunez. But there is also some weaknesses. So I don't actually think that even though Liverpool have paid best part of 100 million euros in this deal for the player, that they're massively improving their team. So why should I, as a United fan, worry about that too much? Might be a year or two down the line, Haider, where we're having the same conversation and going, like when Mane left Southampton, Wouldn't it have been good if United had got him? You know, Darwin Nunez is now the best striker in the world, blah, blah, blah. No, it's no point thinking like that at the moment, is there? You know, we've got enough on our plates at Manchester United. There's going to be signings, there's going to be incomings and outgoings. We'll talk about all of that, not necessarily today, but certainly through the whole of the 10 days of Ten Hag and moving forward with the masterclass. But I feel okay about it. Like you just said there about Cristiano, I still think that the ideal scenario would be that you would have a new striker to start the season with. But Manchester United have decided that they're not looking at strikers per se at the moment. They're looking at forwards. And we'll talk about one or two of those players who Manchester United will be bringing in or hopefully bringing in now in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll cover that later on. We will show a possible Manchester United team that we will see going into next season. I just want to bring up this comment here, Rob, saying we need a squad rebuild, and spending 100 million of your budget on a forward in the summer where we need to fix other areas isn't sensible. I do agree with that point. I think that is something that has been said a lot, I think, on Twitter and obviously in the media. And Man United are concentrating their efforts right now on Frankie de Jong and other players. But let's move on now to let's talk a little bit about Erik Ten Hag's systems and sort of how he's set up for Ajax. So what we have on the screen, we have a graphic here, and a lot of people talk obviously about the 4-3-3, and that is a preferred system for Erik Ten Hag. But he does have flexibility, and he does like to play 4-2-3-1. We did see that last season with Ajax. I mean, Ajax played this system 21 times in the Eredivisie, scored 55 goals, conceded 13, and that was 15 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. So when you look at this side, Rob, I mean, look, let's just look from just an overview. There aren't loads and loads of star players in there, are there? Not loads of superstars, and that's what always stands out to me. And I look at coaches and say, how good are coaches really with the players at their disposal? I mean, you look here, Sebastian Haller didn't have the greatest time at West Ham. Tadic was okay at Southampton. Obviously, we know Anthony is a good player. Gravenberch has just gone to Bayern Munich, good player. You've got Daley Blind, who was at Manchester United, who wasn't really considered a superstar. All of these things considered, Ten Hag has got them functioning very, very well. And I do think that initially, although fans want to see 4-3-3, looking at the squad and looking at the players that will be coming in, I don't think we'll see anything other than a 4-2-3-1 initially under Erik Ten Hag.
I think that's all he can play when he comes in. So 4-3-3 is the utopia. And we'll explain towards the end of the show why I say that, why 4-3-3 works so well in all the big leagues in Europe, especially in the Premier League when we talk about Manchester City and Liverpool. But it's about what United players are going to start off as a base. On day one when they set up there at Carrington, what do the players already know? What does Ten Hag prefer to do? And where do they go from there? So the truth is it's 4-2-3-1. It's not a double pivot in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style. It's not really the McFred connection. I'm sure McFred will feature in plenty of games. But it's much more of a way of getting the ball off the centre-backs and the full-backs and progressing the ball quickly along the ground, something more possession-based. So we put up Ten Hag's system here from the Eredivisie just to show that for 21 games of that championship-winning campaign, that's what they played. They didn't play 4-3-3. But 4-2-3-1 can very easily and quickly become 4-3-3 in real time. And that's really how this manager tends to play it, is that he will transition between the two. He won't be, say, as rigid as Ole was with 4-2-3-1, where you didn't really see a lot of moving parts, did you? It just kind of, they might swap the wingers over one side, or Bruno might sit a little bit deeper, but very, very rarely kind of move the system around. Whereas on the flip side, Ralf Rangnick would quite often in his 4-2-2-2 kind of flip it to a 4-4-2 and move his system around to kind of counteract looking for a counter press that never came. So I think when we look at this manager, he's going to set up like this to start off with, and he'll build his pieces around that.
Make a good point about sort of the rigidity under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and that's why I don't really get hung up on formations. We've been saying this on this show for a while now. A lot of people say, 4-3-3, obviously, and we will talk about 4-3-3 later, and we will talk about Liverpool and City, because that is the formation that is winning pretty much all the trophies at the minute. Mm-hmm. But a 4-2-3-1 with one manager is not the same as a 4-2-3-1 with another manager. I think that's really important to establish. Just because a team is playing that formation does not mean that they're going to play it in the same way. I think that's what people do get hung up on it. Let's look at Manchester United's 4-2-3-1. you can see here, it's quite funny because obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played this because of the fact that Manchester United didn't have the personnel to play a 4-3-3, didn't have a defensive midfielder that could play in that single pivot. So obviously he often went with McFred. We saw Ranieri come in, try and play, 4-2-2-2. He tried to play a little bit of 4-3-3, didn't work, and reverted back to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer formation here. As you can see, obviously, we have huge deficiencies in Manchester United's midfield. You can see with Scott McTominay and Fred. That is the key area for me for Ten Hag. And Ten Hag knows this. He's got to fix this. But when you're looking at the other pieces here, Rob, what are your sort of feelings with this starting 11? Because obviously Ten Hag has heavy emphasis on there will be verticality, keeping possession, knowing where your positions are, making sure that you're staying in your zones. There will be some rotations as well. From what we've seen from these current players and looking at this starting 11, how quickly can that be adopted?
It will take time. Like teaching a system will always take time and you have to be patient. So I remember when Ralph Rangnick came and we both said, and I certainly said I was, really happy that he'd come to the football club, but do not be surprised if you see some stinking performances, because to teach stuff to footballers, teaching old dogs new tricks is hard at times. But the foundation of 4-2-3-1 is already in these players. They've played it for years. The shape is there. They know how to do that shape. If they have better register players in the middle who can get the ball from number 6 and move it to number 8 and 10 quickly, then you're away. And the problem with Ole's system here with his 4-2-3-1 is he just didn't have that. You'd have Bruno Fernandes dropping deeper to try and make up that role of someone who could be a ball player deeper. But let's be honest, when Bruno Fernandes picks the ball up deeper, he gets worse, doesn't he? So I think that the system itself is not the issue. And as we said before, as you said at the start, the fluidity will need to be there. And that's what we'll see with the signings. The signings that Manchester United are trying to make now in the next 2 or 3 weeks are going to reflect having a formation that works on day one, but then can be worked through over the next 2 to 3 to 4 months.
Absolutely. And guys, look, I know there's a question in the comments from Fuzi saying that, will Ten Hag go with a false 9 with Bruno? We will talk about that later on. So we will cover all of that and possible Man United formations with and without Cristiano Ronaldo. Mm-hmm. Rob, let's talk about some of the characteristics of Ajax. I mean, you look at this and it's mightily impressive. Let's be honest. They're very strong at finishing, scoring chances, attacking set pieces. They really do utilize the wide areas. You do see the wide players, especially on the left-hand side. That's combination heavy. Look on the right-hand side, with for example, let's say Anthony Ziyech before that, strong in 1v1s, creativity, providing some service and delivery, cutting in on to the left foot from the right-hand side. You do see here as well, look, creating through balls. So very, very strong in possession and creating chances. Something that Man United are very, very poor at, especially when you compare them to a lot of the top teams across Europe or even in the league. The teams that aren't much better than Manchester United. We're not particularly good there. And let's look at some of the weaknesses as well, though. Defending counterattacks, that could be a concern. Stopping opponents from creating chances as well. So what are your sort of overall thoughts when you're looking at Ajax's characteristics? I mean, it's everything that I expected, short passing, possession-based, controlling territory, something that we've seen Ajax do, throughout Ten Hag's reign as manager there.
Yeah, I've heard a lot in the last few weeks, kind of a lot of speculation about what the new manager's going to do and how he's going to work it, and a lot about the counter press. As we said, I think kind of going back to when the first rumours about Ten Hag coming to the football club were there, it's not really a counter pressing coach. He's kind of does a little bit of that. He plays more counter attack through possession, play possession of the ball, look after the ball, protect the game. Very Dutch, but maybe with a modern twist, with more kind of energy at the top end of the pitch. So I think when you kind of look at the strengths, there's nothing there that really jumps out. Weaknesses wise, defending the counter attacks in the English league would be definitely a massive problem. It's still a problem for Manchester United today, isn't it? That's not a new thing. And stopping opponents from creating chances. He sounds like the perfect Man United manager, doesn't he? You know what I mean? So this has been the issue for Man United for absolutely weeks and months and years. So these things need to be addressed, but they need to be addressed through signings. And this is why we're more than confident that Manchester United will be making those signings, because you can't really start with what you've got by playing 4-2-3-1 and saying, right, let's just go with it. There certainly will be lots of players who have been involved with Manchester United the last couple of years who will still be in the team and in and around the squad. But you're going to have to see, I think, something that looks more like a Pep Guardiola team in terms of possession through midfield and releasing the attack and controlling the game through a mid-block and moving forward, rather than, say, a Liverpool team who are classical counter-press, very high up the pitch, 3 behind 3, pushing hard, setting traps, and basically 2 passes in and goal. That's the Ralph Rangnick way, isn't it? We talked about that a lot. I don't think we'll be seeing that at Manchester United next season.
I want to challenge you, Rob, on something, and I think something we'll both agree on is that this current Man United side are really, really poor, in my opinion, in terms of their pressure success. Let's say, throughout the season, Ralph Rangnick really struggled with it, and this is a point because I think you're seeing Rangnick go to Australia. I know international football, but what he's done in a couple of games over there shows that any player can press. In my opinion, it's about a mindset, right? Unless obviously you're very, very old or you're 37, you're playing number 9 for Man United, Ronaldo. But it is a mindset, isn't it? I think these players, they showed that either they weren't capable of pressing in terms of physically, which I don't agree with because you're a professional footballer, or they just didn't want to do it or didn't have the appetite to do it. And I think that's more likely that we saw from this squad. And what we've seen, though, is that this squad doesn't have the appetite to do this consistently. Press high from the front. We saw it under Ralph Rangnick for about half an hour and then a few more times in the games to come after that. So I agree with you. I don't think we don't see that much, counter-pressing under Ten Hag or at all at Ajax. But I think he might do that. And the reason why I think that is because this current squad cannot do what he wants to do consistently, that high press. If Ronaldo's playing at number 9 as well, we've seen that already. It's not going to happen. So he has to find a way to work with what he's got. He's not going to go and be able to get a brand new number 9. You understand what I'm trying to say, don't you? He's going to have to work with what he's got while bringing in players, let's say De Jong and other players. And what I think we will see, though, is we will see a high line. But then that also, and we will talk about the goalkeeper in different episodes, but then you'll need a keeper then if you're playing a high line to be a sweeping keeper. So that's another issue. So I do think he's got 2 challenges. One at the top of the pitch for Ronaldo in terms of without the ball. I think with the ball, he's going to score a lot of goals. I really do. I think we'll create a lot of chances and Ronaldo will score. But the defense starts from the top. And I don't see with him there that United can go and press consistently, but I think we might counter press. And now that he's a permanent manager, he's going to say, if you don't do this, then you'll be on the bench and be at the club.
I think the thing is with the counter press, the key trigger to it is the movement of your forwards. So what do your forwards do in the backup of the midfield? And the reason why it didn't work with Ralph Rangnick is that the United players just simply not disciplined enough to do it. So like you talked there about desire, and I think that is part of it. But I don't believe that the Man United players didn't want to win. I don't think they went out on the pitch and went, do you know what, we'll just lose today because the season's over. And I don't believe that. I just don't think they had the core discipline. Again, let's think about someone like Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes can press. He can do all of that. But in terms of his shape in his position, he is really ill-disciplined, isn't he? We talked about Ronaldo in the past. Ronaldo likes to go for a little wander, doesn't he? I'm going to the left for a bit. I'm dropping in. I'm dropping out. I'm going to stand in the middle for a little bit. Those are problems when you're a manager trying to create a system. I don't think we will see any counter-pressing in the first 6 months at Manchester United. I think we might get there eventually, but it's a little bit like Jurgen Klopp again at Liverpool when day one happened. You didn't get counter-pressing, gegenpressing style straight away at Liverpool. You had to build it. You had to train these boys to do what you want them to do. And I think that's where Manchester United will be. I think they'll set up with the 4-2-3-1. It will be about looking after the ball a little bit more. And slowly but surely, you hope the play will start to improve. The players will get the system a little bit more. And Manchester United can play more on the front foot.
Something also to note, Rob, is that when Klopp joined Liverpool, although he favours 4-2-3, he did go initially with a 4-2-3-1. The players suited that more. And obviously, he spent 2 or 3 years gutting that squad and bringing in players that were able to play it. And I think that's important. I think that's probably initially what Ten Hag will do until he has the players to play 4-3-3. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does do. But let's move on now. So this is a 4-2-3-1. We've tried to change it up a little bit, haven't we? We don't want to put McFred in. We're trying to show you players that Man United obviously are interested in that could very well come into the football club as well this summer. As you can see here, De Gea in goal. The back four is the same. No signings there, no Timber there, and we can maybe talk about that briefly as well. Brand new pivots with Neves and De Jong. De Jong obviously is someone, and there's a question here saying, are we fearful that we're dawdling on the De Jong deal? Could we mean losing out on other targets? That's how I feel. But I think United, will likely get their man there. Anthony on the right-hand side, Bruno as the number 10, Sancho on the left. And let's also talk about Ronaldo at the top. So looking at this, I think this is actually probably how Man United will look to line up probably in the opening couple of games. I think that side, especially ignore the defense, but, from De Jong and Neves up, it's a strong side. It's a side that I think that can execute some of Ten Hag's principles. I think there are concerns without the ball. But all in all, what are your thoughts with this 4-2-3-1 with Ronaldo at the point of the diamond?
Well, first of all, talking about transfers, we are on day 4 of the transfer window. So I know Manchester United fans are looking at Haaland, looking at Darwin Nunez, and the green-eyed monsters are all coming out. Calm down. No one is dawdling anything. It takes time to do deals. We're in the middle of an international period. Most players are with their international teams at the moment.
Here's a question though, Rob. How can Liverpool then go and get the players? How can City go and get? They've signed 2 strikers before the season.
Haaland's a deal that's been a year in the making. Excuse me, as I cough away. So it's been a year in the making. It's not been done in 5 minutes. And Darwin Nunez has been burning away for weeks and weeks and weeks. And we've known he's coming to the Premier League, and he just had to choose which club he wanted to go to. He chose Liverpool. That's it. Done. I think football fans, there's been times when Man United have been quicker and bought players, and you go, well, it's the wrong signings. Calm down. It's early. It's really early doors. So, no, I'm not worried at the moment. Excuse me again. But I do think when you look at De Jong, Neves, Anthony, they are genuine targets. Manchester United are in for all of them. They will be submitting bids across that. De Jong is not far away, and hopefully it's something we'll be able to talk about very soon in a positive fashion. But you just talked there about the shape and the system and about Neves and off-ball and on-ball. I think most important for Man United is not off-ball. We talked about off-ball a lot, and that's why McFred used to get picked. Run around. Let's have players that can run around. Now, let's have players that can pass the ball. I think that's a really important part of it. I need players that can pass the ball. So I've put De Jong and Neves in here because they are the 2 central midfielders that Manchester United are looking at. And it will be as what I've called before a modern number 6. So it's not this defensive midfielder thing because teams generally don't play with defensive midfielders. Rodri at Man City is not a defensive midfielder. He's not. He scored like 8 goals last year. So you get players who can do the defensive function like Ruben Neves, but are a modern number 6, a regista. I get the ball, I move the ball, and I can also do the covering function. I can go and plug gaps when I need to. I can go and get into the tackle when I need to, but I'm not, N'Golo Kante, So that's where I think football clubs are going. They're going that way and buying central midfielders that are kind of multifaceted. And that's why De Jong is so essential in this, because that's what he is. Multifaceted midfielder, box to box, can do 1,000,001 different things. Kind of reminds me a little bit of when Toni Kroos was at Bayern Munich and Man United wanted Toni Kroos back in those days. It was for him to come in and do this type of role that you can do a little bit of everything. You're smooth, you're a ball player, you can release teams, but you can also sit in front of the defense. You can do different stuff. That's what Ten Hag wants. He wants midfielders that can do that. He does not want Calvin Phillips. That's not the kind of player he's looking at. Declan Rice would fall in the middle somewhere, but at the moment, he's not available. So I've put these 3 in there, Anthony, De Jong, and Neves. And of course, today's show is about Ronaldo. So this team is built around getting Ronaldo the ball, but also looking after Ronaldo. So playing in this 4-2-3-1, and it's very much the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer shape without the double pivot, just 2 midfielders that can actually do more box to box. You look at Ronaldo there with Bruno, it's something we're all very familiar with, isn't it? It doesn't really make, it's not rocket science again. Anthony on the right is obvious. Sancho on the left is obvious. And it would be a very tight, compact shape of being able to have ball retention in the middle of the park and then hopefully allowing Ronaldo to be more free right at the top end of the pitch.
Question here, Rob, from Liam. Who's winning the ball back in midfield? I think one of... I'm going to answer partially on this with Ruben Neves is that if you go and look at some of his statistics, I haven't looked for a while, but I remember when we did a show on him last summer, didn't we, Rob? And actually, he came out pretty well in terms of his interceptions. He's a good tackler. So I think he is deceivingly good defensively. And I also want to dispel the myths. A lot of people are saying that De Jong's going to play as a number 6. He's not going to sit and play as a number 6 at all. So we can dispel that. And if he does, then that defense is in real trouble as well. Something I do want to add to that is that what I do agree with is that, if United keep the ball very, very well, which De Jong and Neves can do, then, it won't almost matter that there's someone not there to go and do all the destroying and breaking the play up, because if the opposition can't get the ball off you and you grind them down like Manchester City do, which is what I expect Ten Hag will want to do as well, I think that's positive. I do look at the midfield and then I do look at the defense, and I think, I would like maybe someone instead of Maguire, someone maybe with a bit more pace and better in 1v1 duels. I think that would be something that I'd prefer. But look, United don't have an endless pot of cash, unfortunately, this summer. Let's talk about Antony, actually, because Ronaldo will absolutely love a creative player, on either side. We've seen Jadon Sancho, who can be very creative, and we do expect him to really, I do expect him to explode next season. He needs a big season. But Antony's very interesting because Ten Hag really does heavily rely on, the player on that right-hand side, a left-foot player, for example. We've seen Ziyech as well, a really good playmaker. He's a good creator, a good goal threat. And you see Antony's a very similar profile, I'd say, to that in terms of, being able to, 1v1, being able to score goals. He's a good creator. He's a good playmaker. He's able to combine as well. So that's going to be really interesting for Cristiano Ronaldo, because we've seen Marcus Rashford has been out there. He's not really offered very much in terms of creativity. His end product hasn't been great. Alanga's still a kid. He's still young. So how key is actually Antony to this system and to Cristiano Ronaldo? Because we obviously, a lot of fans want a striker, but Ten Hag has actually been pretty clear in terms of that he does want Antony, and he does want a right winger. So how important is his addition? He's sort of flying on the radar a little bit, and Ronaldo would love playing with a player like Antony, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when you look at the shape of the system, it's kind of 4-2-3-1. It's kind of more like 4-5-1, but it's the 4-2-3-1 shape that we all know. Why have I kind of constructed it like this? Well, they are from Manchester United's genuine targets, so they very much could all be at the football club next season. Don't worry too much about Harry Maguire. These things will change over time. Don't get too kind of upset about the fullbacks or whatnot. But when you look at Antony, those 5 behind Ronaldo will be tasked, Haider, with looking after the ball, because that's what proper football teams do. Yeah, when City have the ball in midfield, they don't lose it, do they? They don't go, which one of us is going to be the ball tackling midfielder today? It doesn't happen. It's not a real thing for the best teams. When you put Fabinho in there or Thiago at Liverpool, are they ball winners? No. Defensive metrics are really good. Like you just said there, Ruben Neves, amazing defensive metrics. And I think actually what some of the best in Europe in terms of reclaiming the ball and blocking players moving through and doing a lot of really good defensive work. But no, not Roy Keane. Just one more comparison to that. When we signed Michael Carrick with Paul Scholes, people went, he's not Roy Keane. Did it matter? No, because he's a different kind of player. So this would be a different kind of double pivot. No running around like madmen, like Fred and McTominay. This would be like, I look after my position and we move as a unit. That's where Ronaldo, and we're talking about Antony here, will benefit, because it's all more front foot football, in control of the game, allowing your forwards to do more kind of predictable movements, which we didn't see last year. Everything was unpredictable, wasn't it, Haider? Bruno Fernandes, I want to pick the ball up at right back. I'm coming all the way to get it. I'm going to look up. I'm going to play a 50-yard ball to Ronaldo. Ronaldo's like, I'm not even running. That was our game, wasn't it, all over? The idea here would be to have overt control of the midfield.
Yeah, so something to add, Rob. So people are asking, why you've selected these players. So let's go through each of them. Obviously, we've covered De Jong. Don't need to cover De Jong anymore. Frankie De Jong will be a Manchester United player, most likely in due time. So we expect that to happen. So Ruben Neves and Antony, and there's questions about Timber as well. Obviously, Timber is a little bit concerned he might not play. But let's be honest, if he's going to play right back, I know that he's been playing centre back. He's going to play right back. He's got Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. He should walk into the side. Very intelligent player. We did a really good show with James Rowe, guys. If you haven't seen that on Yuri and Timber, he's very exciting. Only 20 years old, but so secure in possession, great decision making. He's actually the one that probably excites me the most in terms of the players that could possibly come in.
He's not coming, unfortunately. So he's a player that no doubt that if he was on the market and came onto the market tomorrow, Manchester United would want him. Manchester United have inquired about him. The issue is that Ajax are very, very keen to keep him. They're going to pay him a lot more money. They want to make the next manager the centerpiece being Timber for that team. So that's not a surprise to me. Like, he was always one of those players that I think was more about in terms of inquiries, whereas there is real logic behind De Jong, Neves and Antony. These are players that Manchester United have been in contact with about their clubs, about the move. So that's why I've kind of included them. I didn't not put Timber in because of, I don't rate him or anything. I mean, he's a really, really good player. And ideally, I would much prefer him over a Delo. Like, come on, every day of the week. But again, I said, don't get too hung up on those people at the back at the moment, because we're not talking about the back line. We're talking about Ronaldo and how do you support Cristiano in there. And this is why I think the glut of the signings are going to be in that middle five. That's where United are targeting those players now. And this is also why they let Darwin Nunez go, because Darwin Nunez would fit the system, but he'd be coming in more to play as a 9. He can play on the left, no problem. But you got Sancho. Sancho is going to play on the left next season. It's just the way it is. So United will buy number 9, I think, eventually. But I do think, knowing that they've got Ronaldo on a £25 million contract, £500,000 a week next year, you better be playing the boy. He's not going to sit on the bench when you're paying him £500,000 a week. So it's about making this, I think, working on all the other positions, because let's be honest, there's plenty of them that need work, and getting those right players in now, rather than kind of thinking about a forward that you might be able to wait for, a centre forward, for maybe even in a year's time.
Let's move on now, Rob, to the 4-3-3. So this is obviously what the fans want to see, and this is what we will most likely see once Ten Hag gets those players that he wants. But we have put a version that we could see, and that's, with Neves sitting as the deepest player. You've got De Jong on the right-hand side and Bruno on the left. We've said this many, many times. And look, I'm a massive Bruno Fernandes fan. I'm actually excited to see what he can do under Erik Ten Hag. I don't subscribe to the fact he's an average player. He's a stat padder, but he really does need to improve his performances, because he was poor last year. But he's one player that I'm really excited to see under Erik Ten Hag, with a bit more discipline. And we'll see if he can do that. But we've seen that when he's a bit deeper, he's better getting towards goal. Bet on the edge of the box, making those runs in, get him, close to goal, get him scoring goals again. And he is a very creative player, but he can be loose in possession. And we've seen obviously here Antony, Ronaldo, and Sancho. What are your concerns though with the sort of 4-3-3 with Ronaldo at the point of attack? Because there is a comment here, Rob, from, I'm just going to get it up now, from Jacob. So thanks for your comment. Ronaldo doesn't have to run around to press from the front. He can just stand on one of the centre backs and mark him out the game. What is your thoughts on that?
Wouldn't it be great if football was just that, yeah? Just stand on one of the centre-backs and just wait for it, because that's great, isn't it? It doesn't work like that. Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't very good at 4-3-3 at Real Madrid. Going back, what would they do when they played 4-3-3? They'd put him on the left and let him have at least a channel to work around. Cristiano Ronaldo is not going to start playing 4-3-3 anytime soon. It doesn't really fit him. It means a centre-back who's a ball player literally walk past him into midfield. And did we see that last year when United played these kind of systems? Yes, we did, because Cristiano does stand still. He can't really stand on the last man. He's not even one of those players anymore, is he, Haider? He doesn't use his pace to kind of break the line, or, he's not Cristiano from 10 years ago. He's a guy who's a predator. You need to get the ball to him in the box, in and around the penalty spot, give him a good chance to score. And if you give him a good chance, he generally hits the target, doesn't he? I think, his actual shot creation of obvious opportunities wasn't great last year. It was about 50%. You'd think it would be better for someone like Ronaldo, but he scored goals. Looking at the shape, the reason why we put this 4-3-3 up, you just talked about Bruno there. I think you're very polite saying Bruno sometimes gives the ball away. Yes, Bruno in this system, dropping to the left or dropping to the right, where he has done at times, or even as a kind of number 6 under Ranić at times, absolute dross at ball retention and ball movement. He's really good at the top end as a 10, gets assists, gets goals. He can help you, but importantly, didn't really help Cristiano last year, did he? Those two together didn't work. Oil and water doesn't work for Portugal, doesn't work for Man United. So this 4-3-3 is just to show our viewers really of why Man United will not play 4-3-3 next year. They might want to play 4-3-3 as the season goes on if they find different methods. and we will suggest one or two for our viewers here today. But if you're going to have Cristiano Ronaldo as your centre forward, you're probably going to have to play 4-2-3-1 and stick with it and work through it. This would allow here Bruno to drop into that midfield three, but I don't want that. I don't want to see him in that three. I don't think he's good at it. Just, he's too rushed. He is too ill-disciplined. He will play too long at times. Just want him to do the simple stuff. Neves and De Jong will do all the simple stuff all day long, Haider. They'll do that. Bruno won't. Bruno will be like, I've got to find Cristiano 800 miles away from me. No. This system will work eventually when Ronaldo's gone. So when Ronaldo's gone in a year's time, and he's not going anywhere fast, and you've got a striker or a centre forward that can help you play 4-3-3, then fingers crossed, this will be a system that you will transition into.
Rob, I'm going to bring up a comment here from him saying, I like Neves as an alternative to De Jong, maybe, but no way I'd want him to hold a fort as, in a single pivot. I mean, this is something that does get said quite a lot. I actually do, in some ways, I do agree with, I don't think Neves is a natural, I think what fans want, okay, let me put it this way. I think what fans want is they wanted a Kamara, they wanted someone who's going to break up play, who's going to screen and give the ball off. And I think Neves, while he doesn't traditionally do that, like we said earlier, when you look at his statistics, I mean, he's a tough player. He can intercept, he can block, he can tackle. But I think fans obviously want someone who's more specialist in that role. And we're seeing that. We saw that a lot last season when we were talking about midfielders. We did hear that quite a lot. He's not a defensive midfielder traditionally or something like that.
It's an obsession of Manchester United fans because defensive midfield's always felt like a problem. But I will keep saying it, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. The modern game isn't about defensive midfielders. That they might break up play and they might do some of that work. It's about players who can get the ball and move the ball. That's what it's about. So I'm not having Neves in front there as a kind of Matic. He's not in there to break up play to be a third centre-back, is he? He's to get the ball and to give it to De Jong 10 yards away and to give it to Bruno 10 yards away. And then sometimes look up and go, oh, Ronaldo is in the channel. Oh, Anthony's the other side of the winger. Let's go. That's why you have a player like that. I do think the United fans are just massively obsessed with the whole Roy Keane era, is that you need someone who's got the engine and will smash people and do all of that. And unfortunately, it's just not what it is. I saw in the comments there about Fabinho, someone saying, oh, Fabinho is a defensive player. Well, Fabinho is a defensive player, but he's technical. He's a technical player. He can play wide. He can get the ball and go to left back and be as good on the left side of the pitch and the right side of the pitch as he can in the middle.
As you said, Rob, he's very multifaceted. I mean, obviously, he is a number 6, but he's a great player. He's got great passing range. He reads the game very well. Again, look, he has got that engine. He's able to cover ground, and he's very, very technically gifted. But then you did make a good point. Obviously, I know him and Thiago played together, but Thiago has often picked the ball off the centre backs, and he has played deeper and he's
a modern number 6.
Mental, yeah.
He's a modern number 6. He's done it for years. He did it at Barcelona even. He's a modern number 6. He'll come and get the ball. And then when he's at the top end of the pitch, he'll look like a number 10. So that's what midfielders are. When you look at kind of the teams that have been successful over the last few years, there's always anomalies where one of them will have a defensive midfielder. So, for instance, again, Chelsea is a really good example. When they've had success, N'Golo Kante is a defensive midfielder, but N'Golo Kante can do like a million things. Yeah, he's not a player who just has to be Claude Makelele. He's more Michael Essien. That type of player, I can go and do work everywhere, and I'm not just going to do it here. And I think United would be doing themselves a disservice if the whole team was built around a defensive midfielder. I think you'd just be very rigid. You'd be much more deeper. You wouldn't be able to play a higher press. You wouldn't be able to do all of those things because you'd be trying to just plug gaps. Neves has got some of the best defensive metrics of any midfielder in Europe. Absolutely classical, really, really good at what he does. And I think you want a technical midfielder. And he runs as well. We talked about Man United players not running in the past. Yeah, Neves is a worker. He works really hard. You can't get in that Wolves team unless you work.
Yeah, good question here as well. Guys, keep them coming and keep your comments coming. Some great comments and some great discussions going on today. From an attacking perspective, how will you, I think they're saying prove out the role of the 10. I think he's saying, so how would that role work behind Ronaldo? trying to think of Berghouse's role when Haller or Dolberg type player plays, which is Cristiano's profile. What I will say is that, so when you have, let's say it's De Jong and Neves, they're going to be the players who are going to be possession heavy. They're going to start attacks. They're going to keep it simple. They're going to break lines. I think the key here is that those front players, so let's say Anthony, Ronaldo, Sancho, and Bruno, quick interchanges and combinations are so important in Ten Hag's system, and they're going to have to be playing in between the lines. So I think that's the key here. I think we're going to see a lot of fluidity, especially in that the front four positions, and I think that and we're going to see width from the wide players as well. So I'm actually not too bothered, or maybe not too worried about who actually plays behind Ronaldo, whether it's Donny van de Beek, whether it's maybe Christian Eriksen. We've seen the links, and the Man United seemingly have offered him, some sort of deal. I think that whoever plays in that position, like the key for me is the combinations, the quick interchanges, and moving the ball quickly. So that's sort of how I think about it. I think Bruno's gonna be fine in that respect. I feel like when he has more time on the ball or he's deeper, he's wasteful.
I agree. And Bruno Fernandes has got to prove it all again to me, Haider. I think he's a great player, but I'm not interested in great players. I'm interested in how you can help Man United win. Bruno didn't help Man United win last year. Same way for Cristiano. There's no kind of mixing the oil and water and thinking that there's a problem with the individual. It's, does it make you a better team? No. I think if we flip to the next slide, that will marry in quite nicely to what we're saying about Bruno and playing about the midfield and the centre forwards, is the Rashford slide. Because we do think that next year that Marcus Rashford's going to play as a 9. This is kind of what we're hearing, that it's going to go that way. Have we got that slide? Oh, there we are here. Oh, no, it's just the Bruno slide. Sorry. Yeah, you've got that. And actually, sorry, you're right. We go back to the Bruno slide. When you're playing here with a false 9, will Ten Hag do this? Probably not. Why? Doesn't really play a lot with a false 9. It hasn't done the last year or so. He's done it in the past with Tadic at Ajax, but he's tend to go with the kind of lone striker playing that 4-2-3-1. As you see there, who have we dropped into there? Everyone's favourite, Mr. Donny van de Beek. So Donny van de Beek could allow Manchester United to play a more fluid 4-3-3, kind of being as a third man runner, yeah? Allowing De Jong to sit in the 8, Neves to sit in the 6, again, being very fluid, mixing it around, and Van de Beek joining a Bruno-type player in the middle, or a Rashford, or even, to an extent, a Ronaldo. But I think Ronaldo would suffer really badly in the system. They wouldn't be able to find him. He'd find it very, very difficult, I think, to just be stuck to the centre-back at the back there. But if we go to the next one, and we'll kind of go backwards and forwards between them, this would be what you could do with the 4-2-3-1 with Marcus Rashford in there. And then you've got also Donny van de Beek, who can also play the Bruno role there. And I think that is more likely going to be your second formation. So when we go forward in this season, I think you might see this kind of shape with these kind of players in it a lot more, and Cristiano sitting on the bench. Because Cristiano, I think, will be the starter, but there's going to be weeks, isn't there? I think we have to preserve him now. And we didn't do that last year, did we? We didn't look after him. We couldn't look after him. Everything was about Ronaldo plus whoever. And that was a bad look for Man United. So I think when you kind of look at those shapes and those systems, that's where I think Ten Hag will lean towards.
So something I do want to sort of add as well is that, sort of Donny van de Beek. I mean, let's talk about him as well, because he is coming back. He's coming back to a manager as well, who obviously got a real tune out of him. He was really, really good in those Champions League performances. We saw Donny van de Beek score at Spurs, against Chelsea. Really good player. Obviously coming back, new lease of life. Where is he going to fit in? Because I think his best position is number 10. Yeah. And obviously, now that Ten Hag is coming in and there's a heavy emphasis on possession and movement, something that Donny van de Beek does excel in, he's not going to pick a pass, and that's the key. The key is to understand, obviously, the differences between Bruno Fernandes, Donny van de Beek, Christian Eriksen. I'm just bringing Eriksen in because he's a player that will pick out a pass. I mean, Liam has just sort of picked the question out of my mind. What happens with Donny if we sign Eriksen? Look, I think it's important in your squad to have different profiles. Bruno Fernandes is one certain profile, Donny van de Beek's another. But how much of a big impact is it for Ten Hag that Van de Beek's obviously, impact for Van de Beek that Ten Hag is coming in? Do you expect him actually to get more minutes?
I expect him to get more minutes, but Donny's got a long way to go. Like this is year one again for him now, isn't it? Like he went to Everton, did he do all right? Maybe. Did he prove that he's a Manchester United player? I don't really think so. I think it's interesting. Obviously, we showed there the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer team with the 4-2-3-1. And the more I think about that and more I look at that, there's absolutely no way Donny van der Beek can play in that double pivot. Like, we've seen it enough. But this double pivot, he might be able to play in. It's a different kind of football. It's not about ball winning. Like we said there, like, again, if you played a Neves and a Van der Beek, so you didn't get De Jong, you might be able to have Van der Beek doing that maybe transitional role in midfield. It's not what I'd be happy with, but it's certainly something that I think Ten Hag might experiment with. And I think that's what is important at this point, is looking at what the options are for Ten Hag. You just said about Bruno and Christian Eriksen. Christian Eriksen's definitely on Manchester United's radar, has been for a number of weeks. Manchester United have offered him a contract. You'll hear a lot more about that in the next 2 or 3 days. And he would be a player to bring in that experience in that role. Just an important thing about Christian Eriksen. 2 weeks ago, Christian Eriksen said out of his mouth, I want to sign for a Champions League club. Yesterday, Christian Eriksen said, London. I'm not really that bothered about Champions League. So there we go. So he's kind of gone from, he's swung from one way to the other because he's looking at his offers. He knows what's on the table. But Christian Eriksen as well would fit the 4-2-3-1 perfectly. He could actually play even in the wider roles if you wanted to play something a bit more narrow. Yeah. So Christian Eriksen coming to the football club would not necessarily impact Donny van der Beek. You know, they won't necessarily be two players that will tread on each other's toes, but it depends where they would be playing and where you would see Eriksen operate. Like, I would rather see Eriksen operate as a 10. I think he's actually a better 10 than Bruno. So Bruno's got all the metrics, scores all the goals and great, but I see Bruno more as a false 9 in the future because he's got that goal scoring capability. But Eriksen is a genuine, stone cold creator. Get the ball. He can be deep. He'll look up. He'll find the channel. He can be in and around the box. He'll play 1-2s. He'll get Ronaldo shots off. And I think Ronaldo would prefer that much more than what he was getting last year. So Eriksen, wait and see on that one. I think he's a player that Manchester United do covet him and they do like him. And I think that he's ready for that move. He's going to go to a big club. It's either going to be us or it's going to be Tottenham. I think it's just kind of as simple as that as it stands today. And I'd love him at Man United. He would fit all of these things that we're talking about.
Well, I've wanted him for years, Rob. I think he was incredible, wasn't he, under Pochettino in that 2014-15 season? I mean, at one stage, I think he'd created the most chances since he'd come to the Premier League. I think it was him and Ozil at the time. He's a great player. I know he is 30, but United don't have, after losing Paul Pogba, someone that can pick a pass. I think United do need. Obviously, we're getting De Jong, most likely joining, but they do need someone as well who can also do that and have someone on set pieces as well, because United have been very, very poor in that respect. Let's move on now. The final segment of the show, guys, as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's talk a little bit about Manchester City and Liverpool, which is very strange to do a Man United podcast, but that is the standard. That is the level that we want to aspire to be. It's where Ten Hag wants to be. He's obviously said era's end as well, which was interesting when he had that first interview. Look, both sides played 4-3-3 a lot of times last season. We've got City's formation here. I think what's interesting to first pick out, because we're having this discussion and obviously a lot of commenters regarding that defensive midfielder position. You can see here a midfield of De Bruyne, Rodri, and Gundogan. You wouldn't say, has I suppose a lot of muscle. They're not players that will, you traditionally put their foot in. I think Rodri is honestly, Rob, an absolutely wonderful player. I think he's actually one of my favorite and most underrated players in the league. I know he plays for City because, as you mentioned, he's got a real eye for a goal. 8 goals last season, but he just keeps it ticking. He keeps it moving. He reads the game very, very well. Positionally, he's fantastic. He's a great passer with the ball. He breaks the lines. He feeds De Bruyne and Gundogan. I think Gundogan most likely is going to be a big miss for them as well. But City are executing the 4-3-3. I mean, they do it fantastically well. You see, obviously, Cancelo, who's been very, very good this season as well. Then now I've got Haaland. Alvarez has joined as well. I mean, where are you sort of, what are you thinking about this? And then how are you sort of linking that to Manchester United and Ten Hag?
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at this. The first one is we said that 4-3-3 is winning football at the moment. If you can do a 4-3-3 properly, you win. If you don't do it well, you lose. So you've got to be really, really careful. This is obviously Guardiola's shape. This is what he's developed over a long, long period of time. As you just said there about Rodri, has defensive functions, doesn't he? He'll go back. He can defend in terms of the space between the centre-backs. But his primary function is to get that ball, turn, give it to Kevin De Bruyne, and to do it accurately 99 times out of 100. And if he does it wrong once, I bet you his manager's on his back. That's the standard. That's what Man United needs to do. It can't be McFred giving the ball away 30% of the time and then going, well, we did it all right 7 out of 10 times. No, if you lose it that one time or 2 times or 3 times, you lose the game. It's as important as that. So when you look at City's system, again, nothing overtly technical about it, but this is kind of the positionless system of where players can move in and out of the shape. And this is a shape that really Cristiano Ronaldo could not play at Man City. That's why you've got a Phil Foden up there. And now, of course, they're putting a Haaland up there who might well be the modern Cristiano, wouldn't it?
Frightening.
Frightening in terms of his potential and what he could do. But I'm also, again, I'm in that kind of halfway house where I'm thinking, I know he's great. I know he can do stuff, but he does suffer with injuries. So that's going to be a problem in the Premier League.
That's fair.
Yeah. And 2, he's actually never really experienced this football before in England. He's English by trade. I think he was born in Leeds, wasn't he? And he's a Man City fan, he says, his whole life because he wore a shirt once when his dad was there. Okay, cool. But I would like him at my football club because he's so good. But at City are going to have to change some of their systems. That might hurt them. It might.
Well, let me challenge that. I actually agree. The injury point is what I've been saying a lot. But the thing is as well, is City have such a deep squad that Pep can afford to rotate and go and play Foden there, Alvarez there. What I will add to that as well is you're putting probably one of the most prolific strikers and converters of chances in the side that creates the most chances in Europe. And I think that's the frightening thing is that, he's not going to be starved of, like Ronaldo was last season, for example. He's not going to be starved of chances and service.
No, he won't be. And I also think the other upside for City is that Jack Grealish wants a striker by him. That's what he wants. And he hasn't had that this season. And I think that's why Jack Grealish hasn't really thrived at Manchester City, even though, of course, he's got a championship medal in his pocket. But for Manchester United, and the other kind of part 2 of that is the link between Ten Hag and Pep and Bayern Munich, and how his systems have been born from that period. Those 2 guys obviously worked together. And Ten Hag is a big admirer of all of the Guardiola things. And let's be honest, when Guardiola came to England, there were lots of naysayers who went, he can't do it in England. His systems won't work in England. They're too possession-based. The tiki-taka stuff doesn't work. It's not going to be a thing. He'll come to England, he'll fail, he'll go. And he's come to England and he's basically revolutionized the game. He's changed it completely. 4-3-3 is now the go-to system that wins. And you can see with the shape of the team that he'll put players in different positions to make sure the shape is fundamental and is victorious. That's what matters to him. I think that's where Ten Hag will go eventually. So that's why we're bringing up the City system. If you bring up the Liverpool system as well, because again, so we said there obviously with the City system, they played that before, I think 20 odd games, but did move it around. Liverpool in the Premier League last year played 4-3-3, 38 times out of 38. Go-to system.
94 goals, obviously.
When everyone is fit, they play 4-3-3. And look at the shape and look at the team and look at who these players are. We all know who they are and what they do, but let's look at the fundamentals. So you've got there with, Henderson, Fabinho, Thiago. It's a mix. It's making sure that you've got players who can pass the ball, who've got a bit of energy, do the defensive function, but can think like that. They're not going to dilly-dally on the ball. It's not going sideways like Man United, backwards and forwards between McFreds. It's not going to do that. They're going to get the ball, they're going to press, and they're going to get going. And then on the other end of the pitch, you've got there Salah, Jota, and Mane. And that, again, is all about the shape and the fundamentals of that. It works perfectly. They all know each other so well. Jota came in, didn't he? And it's like he's been there for 10 years because he'll just go, I just play this role. They'll find me, header, bang, goal. We've won another game. As you said there, 94 goals in 38 games is obscene. But again, what it proves is that 4-3-3 is a go-to system in English football. We'll get there eventually, Man United, but I think there's going to be lots of kind of experimentation, certainly in year 1, where Cristiano is still on the books, because you're going to have to work around that problem. You cannot play this 4-3-3 that we're looking at here now in Liverpool and apply that to Ronaldo. You just cannot do it. He cannot do it at 37, 38 years old and be expected to run like any of that front three there that we see for Liverpool. But I do think that that's where we're going. I think that's where Ten Hag will want to go eventually, and he'll buy players to fit that. Anthony fits it, can play in that top end. Sancho fits it. And dare I say it, I know people won't like it, Marcus Rashford does fit it. Just whether he will do it or not, or be successful at it, is a completely different question.
Let's touch on the player because right at the beginning of the show, I can't remember who it was, but somebody did ask the question, Martial. What are we hearing about Martial? I will be honest with you. When you look at the qualities of prime Anthony Martial, when he's on his top form, he absolutely fits that number 9 role like a glove for Ten Hag. Great in possession, link-up play. He's a good finisher. He can press. He has got the capability to press. He's not the most energetic presser. But he links up very well with Bruno, for example. He links up well with the wide players. Marcus Rashford really thrived playing with him. Bruno Fernandes played his best football. Martial is number 9 as well. Look, his stock's really low. Didn't have the greatest loan spell at Sevilla. He's going to be back in Man United. They want to sell him, but they're probably not going to be able to get him off the books. 250 grand a week salary, which is very, very, very big. Is there a way back for him? Is there a possibility he'll play? We've mentioned Marcus Rashford as a number 9. That's probably where he'll play this season, which will be an interesting prospect as well. So could you see that, maybe Martial getting a chance to rotate with Ronaldo and maybe making that position his own?
Making the position his own, not so sure. I think the doubts about Anthony Martial are very real, and I understand why people have them. And I do believe that he's had a bad period. He spoke recently about the injuries that he's had over the last 12 months, and he said that they've really affected him in terms of his top game, not being able to produce his best form, and that the trip to Sevilla was to get fit to come back to Man United. So it's quite interesting him saying that. We do know that Ten Hag likes Anthony Martial. He's a player that he's spoken about in the past. I think he's more likely going to like him from the left rather than as a centre forward. But we've seen that Ten Hag has played wider players through the middle at times when he's played fluid systems. So Tadic himself has kind of gone from a wider player at times at Ajax, going through to being a centre forward at times. So I do think that you're going to see quite a bit of Anthony Martial in a Man United shirt next year. He's going to be part of the rotation. It's just whether or not he can produce his top form. The season before last, obviously, when he had his big year, what was it? 23 goals, I think he scored.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you got 23 goals out of Anthony Martial last year? Man United walk the top 4, don't they? Walk it. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably still the manager. So there's a big difference there for just one player can actually make for you. I think Anthony Martial is really talented. Whether he can come back to United and do it is another thing. I think it's really tough once you've gone on loan to come back and then be like Jesse Lingard. Jesse Lingard did it last year, was brilliant at West Ham, came back, just couldn't reproduce anything that forced his way into the team. I get the feeling that Martial will also be that kind of player, someone on the outskirts of the team. But, Haider, important, you must have these players in and around your squad. Like, I know everyone wants to sell everyone and get rid. I've just seen their name there, Ahmed and Pellistri. Absolutely, they're going to be involved.
I really like the look of Pellistri, Rob.
Yeah,
I think he's someone that I want to see get a chance on the right-hand side.
Totally, but if you're buying Anthony, it's not happening. So this is the thing. So these two players, Ahmed and Pellistri, will be involved in pre-season. They'll be recalled and they'll be part of that trip to Australia. And we'll see a little bit of them. Do I think that they're kind of on the cusp of being starters or not? I think they're probably behind Garnacho as it stands today. But Ahmed, I think, might go back to Rangers. And I think Pellistri will probably continue on loan somewhere. And Pellistri's done really well. I think he's a growing player. But it's about the squad, isn't it? You're trying to build a squad here. And these guys have all got a stake as long as they come in at pre-season and actually do the work and show the manager that they're good enough.
Rob, let's finish on the final word. That was episode 1. We've got so much content coming. We've got 9 more episodes of, the 10 days of Ten Hag. Final thoughts, sort of on Ronaldo and Ten Hag and the systems. We've spoken about it. We've spoken about the qualities and characteristics of Ten Hag's Ajax. Very, very impressive, possession heavy. Lot of chance creation, and that's where I think Ronaldo will really benefit. He can still score goals. There's no doubt about it. You give him a chance, he'll score goals. He's still very, very, very clinical. The way I'm sort of seeing it is, obviously Ronaldo is here. He's got 1 more year. We are going to see him start games. I'm more than happy just to see him start even once a week. Preserve him because he looked like he could play. We were seeing with Ranić, he was playing twice a week, and he couldn't even control the ball. Remember, we were talking about it on the Mastercast. The ball was bouncing off, his touch had gone. I do think we'll probably see a happier Ronaldo next season in terms of, because of the fact he'll have service, he can go and score goals and he can do what he likes to do. But I think long-term speaking, United will still need a number 9 and they will need to replace him at the end of the season. I probably would have looked at doing it this season and I would have rotated him. But obviously there are more pressing areas in this squad, namely the midfield, which need to be addressed. And Anthony coming in will help Ronaldo's cause for sure.
There's definitely more pressing issues at the moment. So it's a bit like the De Gea question, like we will talk about goalkeepers in future episodes of 10 Days of Ten Hag. Do you need a sweeper keeper? Yes. Are you going to buy a sweeper keeper this year? No. Just the way it is. You just cannot buy every position in 1 or 2 transfer windows. You're going to have to elongate that process. I think with Cristiano, I think after last year's lessons, that Manchester United should have moved to potentially move him on. I think that's the truth. I'm talking about that as a pure football business decision of looking at him and saying, does a player help you? If you're going to pay someone 25 million, Haider, you better be winning the Champions League. Honestly, it's a huge wage, £500,000 a week. Players don't get that money in general. But yes, he's Cristiano Ronaldo and he'll sell you 1 billion shirts. We get that. But can he help you win? The big challenge for Cristiano this year is to not only score goals, because he will score goals. He'll score 20, 30 goals next year with his eyes closed. Those goals have got to matter. And that means staying in all the tournaments, all the competitions, winning every week. I need Cristiano to go away to Watford's of the world, and Watford are not there this year, but, these teams towards the bottom of the league and bury them. That's what you need Ronaldo for. He wasn't doing that last year. He was getting his goals now and then, a hat-trick. Everyone's happy. But let's be honest, Manchester United's season last year was a disaster. And I put that firmly on the shoulders of the senior players. That's the way I look at it. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the most senior players. Cristiano's got to do better this year. But like you said, I think he might be happier. I think he's coming now with a new manager here, kind of a new construct to help him score goals and just to kind of make sure it all works, like the glue is there. And I think it would have worked with Ralph, but they didn't want to listen to Ralph because Ralph was going. So they're like, we're multimillionaires, Ralph. Off you go to Austria. Well done. Thanks for your counter-pressing. So you're not going to see counter-pressing next year, I don't think, either. I really don't believe you will. I think we'll see some of it at times. But this will be about how do you get Ronaldo going and looking after his bones a little bit more, because this is it. He's old now. He's going to have to sit on the bench. I don't want to do the whole 1 game a week thing, Haider. I think, if he needs 2 or 3 weeks off at a time, go. Let's really manage him properly. Maybe he should start, out of 70 games next year, maybe he should start 30 tops, 25 even. He's old. He cannot sustain it in the Premier League. But he's here.
What 37-year-old can? And he's probably
no one can.
Physically, you look at him as Zlatan, but Zlatan came back from injury was shocking, wasn't he? Remember, obviously he had bad ACL injury. He's gone to a slower league now, Serie A, and he obviously wasn't playing week in, week out. You saw Rafael Leao was a player that was stepping up for AC Milan, scoring the goals, but Zlatan was there for the personality in the dressing room, and he was very, very integral in that.
Literally playing on one knee, literally, you cannot do it in England. I think this is the whole thing. We don't want to get over the top about the Premier League, but it's so physical and so tough. And if you want to play like Liverpool City, you've got to be physical and tough. And I think last year what we saw with Man United was they were weak emotionally and physically and mentally. In all of those areas where they needed to be absolutely rigid and strong, they weren't. And that's why the season was so bad. You're going to have to go again with some of those players, but you hope that, I think with the new manager, that he'll be able to kind of get into their psyche a little bit more. And the Ronaldo issue, hopefully for me as a United fan, won't be so much of an issue when I go to games and watch it and he stood on the halfway line with his hands on his hips. I don't want to see that from any United player. I don't care if you're Ronaldo, whoever, but at least it might mean that the other team is the rest of the team is working with him and they've got support and they're technical players. I think that will help Cristiano not just score goals, but win games.
And we'll finish on that, guys. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is episode 1 of 10 Days of Ten Hag. It is Ronaldo and Ten Hag tactics. Make sure to give this a retweet as well if you see it on Twitter. Give us a follow on @TF Masterclass. Give myself a follow on @Haider_Rubbani. And give Rob a follow on @Rob_B. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. BST. And we'll see you all next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.